Step Bros looks like pure chaos that should have been easy to pull off. Two grown men in bunk beds. A drum set nobody can touch. A family dinner turning into psychological warfare. Boats and hoes. The Catalina wine mixer. Two middle-aged losers screaming at each other like the last 30 years never happened. But under that stupidity, the movie was balancing on a blade before Step Brothers became hilarious. The idea sounded closer to a family drama. The first cut was a monster. Nearly 5 hours of gags and detours that had to be carved into shape. And when it hit, a sequel idea hovered for years, but it never made it back onto the page. These are 10 weird facts about Step Brothers, the comedy that looks completely stupid and was built with way more precision than it ever lets on. Stay to the end because the next bad idea was a rap album. Number 1, the crazy part about Step Brothers is that it did not start with some giant comedy premise. It started with bunk beds. While Adam McKay was finishing Talladega Nights, it was already obvious that while Ferrell and John C. Reilly had found something rare together. So the talk started early. What do you do with those two next? Somewhere in that orbit, somebody mentioned bunk beds, and McKay immediately saw it. Ferrell and Reilly as full-grown men, still acting like children, still sharing a room, still trapped in the kind of life most people are supposed to age out of. That image was the spark. But once they started pulling on it, the movie did not lock into comedy right away. McKay could see another version hiding inside the same idea. Not a wild studio farce. A family drama. A story about arrested development, adult children who never grew up, and the quiet damage that leaves all over a house. And honestly, the premise could hold that. Grown men fighting over bedrooms, attention, and who gets to stay home with their parents is funny in one register. In another, it is just sad. That was the fork in the road. Step Bros could have become a movie about failure to launch played straight. The pain was already built into the premise. McKay, Ferrell, and Reilly just realized that pain got much funnier the second they stopped treating it carefully. So they turned the wrongness up. Instead of polishing the idea into something tasteful, they let it get meaner, dumber, and more reckless. And that choice fit exactly where they were creatively. After the bigger machinery of Talladega Nights, McKay wanted something looser, more contained, a movie that could run almost entirely on the warped rhythm between Ferrell and Reilly. Not when they found the sadness in it. When they realized the sadness played better as war. Number 2, a lot of comedies improvise. Step Brothers attacked itself with it. Once filming started, Adam McKay was not guarding the script like it was fixed. He had a method he called Alt on the fly, and it turned the set into a moving target. He would stay near the camera and start throwing in new jokes, new lines, and new directions while the actors were already in the middle of the take. The scene was never really settled. It could bend in real time. That is why the movie feels so twitchy and alive. The jokes do not always land like something polished and placed. They land like they are breaking into the scene while the scene is still trying to survive. McKay was not waiting for a reset. He was feeding chaos into the take and seeing who could catch it. And the footage started piling up fast. If every scene keeps growing sideways with new riffs, insults, breakdowns, and alternate versions, the movie starts ballooning whether you want it to or not. By the time the first cut came together, it was reportedly pushing 5 hours. So the disorder you feel on screen is not some editing trick. The production was actually generating way more movie than the final version could hold. You can feel that method in the smaller rhythms too. Rob Riggles repeated, "Okay. Are you saying, pal? You mess with my nut, Brennan. Randy here is going to eat your dick," like Kobayashi are funny because they do not just work as lines. They start attacking the room. Once Will Ferrell began cracking, McKay did not calm it down. He pushed harder. So when Adam Scott goes, "He's gonna eat your thing. Like he's gonna eat your D." I had to agree and add. So I went like Kobayashi, I wouldn't do it if Will didn't like it. If Will was like, enough, I would have been okay, no problem. But he was laughing. Then there is Richard Jenkins and the dinosaur speech. During the Catalina wine mixer, McKay walked up and told Jenkins to tell Brennan and Dale that as a child, he used to pretend he was a dinosaur. Jenkins did not even fully understand why. It was not some neat scripted monologue sitting there waiting for him. McKay just pushed him into it. So Jenkins went in completely straight, talking about the short arms, roaring, chasing cats around the yard, then landing on that weirdly sad memory of his father telling him to stop being a dinosaur and get a job. The dinosaur speech that you talked about, I was sitting there at the Catalina wine mixer. Adam McKay said to me, "Go tell Will and John that you wanted to be a dinosaur when you were young." I said, "Adam, what the hell are you talking about?" So, it was not scripted. You just came along. So I went over, and I started talking, and both of them kept saying to me, that's just not possible, Dad.
What?
What are you talking about? And I came back and well, that won't be in the movie. And Adam said, oh, yes it will. That moment tells you exactly how Step Brothers was being built. The scene gets funny because it arrives from nowhere, keeps going longer than it should, turns strangely pathetic in the middle, and still never breaks its own sincerity. McKay did not just film the joke. He kept ambushing the scene until something stranger showed up. Number 3. One of the most revealing things about Step Brothers is not just that the movie had a giant first cut. It is what was hiding inside that extra footage, because the longer version was not just bigger, it was meaner. You can see that most clearly in the deleted dinner table material around Dale. In one scene, the family starts pressing him about his life. And instead of giving a normal answer, Dale insists he is a professional bodybuilder and trainer of show horses under the name Warlock. That already feels like perfect Step Brothers. Total delusion. Total confidence. The kind of lie that only works because Dale commits to it like it is a resume. Then the scene keeps going, and that is where it changes. Robert cuts straight through the fantasy and tells everyone Dale has been unemployed for 15 years. The room turns on him. Dale fires back. Robert pushes harder. Even Derek's kids start piling on while Derek barely steps in. What starts as a ridiculous family moment suddenly feels much uglier, like the movie has stopped laughing with the dysfunction and started trapping you inside it. Step Brothers was always walking near a nastier version of itself. A version where the jokes hit harder, but the humiliation hangs around longer too. The family is not just chaotic, they are cruel, and if too much of that stayed in, the movie stops feeling reckless and starts feeling sour. But the deleted material still leaves behind a weird question. If McKay had let it run just a little longer, would Step Brothers have turned uglier or even funnier? You could probably make an entire another movie. It could be the multiverse of Step Brothers. What they left on the cutting room floor. Number 4, some comedies throw in a gross-out gag and keep moving. Step Brothers built one like it was a premium effect. The drum set scene is already insane on paper. Brennan does not just mess with Dale's drums. He launches a full psychological attack on them. And because the movie wanted that moment to land with maximum discomfort, the production did not settle for some cheap throwaway prop. They commissioned a prosthetic nutsack. Not a throwaway one, a high-end one that cost somewhere between $10,000 and $25,000. Before the scene was even shot, Adam McKay had people over for dinner. And the fake testicles became the thing everyone kept passing around, staring at, and reacting to because they were apparently so realistic and so weirdly heavy. So before they ever hit the drum set, they had already become the strangest dinner party conversation piece imaginable. And after filming, it did not disappear into storage. Well, Ferrell took it home. That would already be enough of a Step Brothers story. But Ferrell did not just toss the prop in a box and forget it existed. He has talked about it like it is one of his prized keepsakes from the movie. He kept it in a wooden box labeled testicles from Step Brothers and has brought it out at dinner parties and public events just to horrify people. Which means the fake nutsack did not stop being funny when the camera stopped. It followed Will Ferrell home. Number 5. One of the smartest things Step Brothers does is never photograph Brennan and Dale like harmless idiots in a disposable comedy. It shoots them like they are in a war. That choice came from Adam McKay, who understood that 2 overgrown children fighting over bedrooms, drum sets, and parental attention would get funnier if the movie did not wink at the audience visually. So instead of giving the film some flat sitcom look, he brought in Oliver Wood, the cinematographer from the Bourne films. Wood helped find the look of tense action movies full of pursuit, pressure, and men who seem one bad second away from breaking something important. Then he shows up on Step Brothers to shoot 2 middle-aged losers glaring at each other in a suburban house like an operation is about to go sideways. And the movie commits to it. The camera does not sit back and treat Brennan and Dale's rivalry like small nonsense. It gives it shape, weight, momentum. Their hostility gets framed like something serious is unfolding. Even when the actual issue is embarrassingly stupid, that mismatch is what makes it hit. The behavior is childish. The filmmaking treats it like open conflict. That is what Oliver Wood was really doing there. He was making suburban idiocy feel weirdly cinematic. Number 6. Before Brennan and Dale even speak, something about them is already wrong. You look at them, and the movie has already started the joke. They are grown men, but they do not dress like grown men. Their clothes feel old, specific, slightly frozen in time, like nobody ever forced them to leave the last scraps of childhood behind. That is a huge part of why the movie works. Brennan and Dale are not just emotionally stuck. They are visually stuck too. That look did not happen by accident. Costume designer Susan Matheson had a very specific problem to solve. She needed Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly in vintage 70s and 80s clothes without making them look cool, ironic, or fashionably retro. The second the outfits started looking curated, the whole joke would break. They would stop feeling like man-children and start feeling like hipsters playing dress-up. So the clothes had to feel organic, not stylish, not ironic, just wrong in the exact way these two men would be wrong. Matheson had a huge advantage there because she was already a vintage Americana collector with access to piles of old shirts and weird forgotten pieces. She brought stacks of options to set, and then Adam McKay, Ferrell, and Reilly helped narrow them down until they landed on the strangest, most immature choices. The goal was not to make them look silly. It was to make them look like their taste stopped developing when they were kids. That is why the details land so hard. Brennan's Star Wars pajama pants are not just a throwaway gag. Matheson actually made them herself using vintage Star Wars bed sheets she found on eBay. That is such an absurdly specific choice, and that is exactly why it works. The pants do not feel like a costume joke. They feel like something Brennan has owned forever and sees no reason to stop wearing. Dale got shaped a little differently. John C. Reilly suggested that Dale should dress with the logic of Gar Animals, the children's clothing brand built around easy matching. That idea is perfect for him. It is why Dale often looks brighter and more coordinated than Brennan. Not because he has better style, but because he dresses like a child who thinks matching colors means he nailed adulthood. Then the movie pushes the same joke into formal wear. The tuxedo interview scene should be a step toward adulthood. Instead, it becomes another version of the same problem. Brennan and Dale are dressed up, but in two slightly different forms of clueless overcommitment. Even when they try to look adult, they do it like children guessing what adult means. Before Brennan and Dale wreck the room, scream at the family, or fight over something stupid, their clothes already told you the whole story. They never really finished childhood. Number 7, the hard part was never the duo. It was building the family around them. And that starts with Nancy. Before Mary Steenburgen got the role, it went to Leslie and Warren. But scheduling within plain sight knocked that version out. That opened the door for Steenburgen. And it mattered. Nancy cannot just be another punchline. She has to feel warm and believable enough that you understand why she keeps trying to force this impossible family into working. Then came Derek. That role had to hit a very specific nerve. Not just funny, not just smug. Brennan and Dale needed a brother figure who felt like the adult version of everything they hated on sight. Polished, performative, overconfident, so pleased with himself that just hearing him talk would make them want to break something. A lot of actors came through that lane. John Hamm auditioned and made it all the way to the final round. Then he lost it. Later, Hamm joked that he may have blown his shot because he went the opposite way and played Derek too subtle. Dax Shepard went after it too, and that miss stayed with him. He later admitted he was genuinely resentful for years that he did not get the part. Then Adam Scott walked in and solved it. Slick, smug, overconfident, the kind of guy who enters a room already convinced he is the most impressive person in it. The second he shows up, the whole family dynamic gets funnier and meaner. That is when Step Brothers really had its full house. Not just two giant children. A family built to make them worse. Number 8. When Step Brothers hit theaters in July 2008, it was not some misunderstood bomb crawling out of opening weekend on fumes. It worked. Made for about $65 million, the movie pulled in roughly $128.1 million worldwide. That meant Brennan and Dale's particular brand of screaming, humiliation, and emotional toddler warfare had a real audience from the start. It was not the bigger hit Talladega Nights had been, but it was a clear success for a comedy this weird, this mean, and this proudly juvenile. The split showed up around it almost immediately. A lot of audiences locked into the movie fast. They got the rhythm and the cruelty. They understood that Step Brothers was not trying to charm you into laughing. It was trying to bludgeon you with pettiness, territorial rage, and grown men behaving like they were 9 years old. A lot of critics recoiled. The most famous reaction came from Roger Ebert, who said the movie made him feel a little unclean. That line stuck because it captured exactly what the film was doing to people who were not willing to meet it on its own wavelength. The screaming felt abrasive. The vulgarity felt ugly. The whole thing looked less like comedy to them and more like a sustained act of bad behavior. It did not need critics to clear the path for it. It just needed to survive them, because once the theatrical run proved there was a real audience, the movie kept spreading the way quotable comedies do. People kept repeating it, rewatching it, passing it around, and over time, the same thing that made some critics hate it became the reason fans kept it alive. Number 9, for a while, Step Brothers looked like the easiest sequel in the world. The movie hit. People kept quoting it. Brennan and Dale stuck around the way dangerous comedy characters do, where the lines keep living long after the credits stop. So, of course, the next question showed up fast. When are they doing another one? And this was not just fan talk. Well, Ferrell, Adam McKay, and John C. Reilly all kicked the idea around. There was a real shape for it too. Brennan and Dale would have finally made a little progress, maybe even stumbled into some version of adulthood. Then life would knock them right back down again. McKay even said at one point that a sequel was basically ready to go with unused ideas from the first movie still sitting there waiting to be pulled back in. For a moment, that sounded completely believable. Because Step Brothers was the kind of hit that makes a sequel feel inevitable. Not because the story demanded one, because the chaos looked too good to leave behind. But then the years started passing, and the farther the movie got from 2008, the clearer the problem became. Step Brothers was not just a funny premise you could plug back in later. It was built on a very specific collision. The exact age of the actors, the exact level of failure in the characters, the exact point where middle-aged embarrassment and child-level rage were both peaking at once. That is not easy to recreate. Try to do it again, and you risk repeating the joke. Try to update it, and you risk sanding off the thing that made it dangerous. Anchorman 2 changed the temperature. The sequel took rough reviews, and suddenly the idea of reviving another beloved Ferrell comedy world looked a lot less automatic. After that, the Step Brothers talk got thinner. Less heat, less momentum, more distance. It did not die in one big public way. It just kept fading until it started looking less like a movie that had stalled and more like one that maybe should never have existed in the first place. That is when John C. Reilly said the one line that probably settled it better than any studio announcement could. Let's leave it alone. And honestly, that feels right because Step Brothers did have a sequel path. It just never had a sequel destiny. The longer nothing happened, the more the first film stopped looking incomplete and started looking untouchable. Unless we were really sure that we could do a better version or improve on what it is, let's leave it alone. And sequels are hard to pull off. Number 10. A sequel was not the only bad idea floating around after Step Brothers hit. There was another one. And in a very Step Brothers way, it was somehow even dumber. For a while, the plan was not just to bring Brennan and Dale back for another movie. It was to give them a full rap album performed completely in character. Not a fake joke album, a real one. That sounds like the kind of thing people say backstage, laugh at, and forget by morning. This one got further than that. Adam McKay talked about it publicly in 2011. Songs were being written. Rough tracks were recorded. Real producers were involved. The idea was moving. Once you remember this as the movie that gave the world boats and hoes, the album starts making horrible sense. Brennan and Dale were already built like men who confuse confidence with talent. The movie had already turned their fake swagger, musical delusion, and total lack of shame into one of its best jokes. A rap album was not some random spin-off from another universe. It was the next logical wrong turn, and they were committing to it. John C. Reilly had already written one track himself, Who Ate the Mother Cheese, which tells you exactly where the project was living creatively. Not polished, not tasteful, just fully willing to follow Brennan and Dale's musical stupidity as far as it could go. Then life did what it usually does to comedy follow-ups. Schedules filled up, other projects moved in. The album drifted, and instead of turning into a real release, it slipped into that weird Hollywood space where something almost happened hard enough to become legend. But the joke never fully died. Years later, Ferrell and Reilly were still willing to drag boats and hoes back on stage, even performing it with Snoop Dogg at Ferrell's Best Night of Your Life 2 benefit show, which is the perfect afterlife for an idea like this. The album never arrived. The chaos kept breathing anyway. Step Brothers doesn't try to clean itself up. It stays petty and loud, embarrassing and fully committed. It's too dumb to behave and too confident to apologize. It doesn't grow up. It just doubles down. So, tell us what you thought about these facts. And if we missed anything, got something wrong, or you remember it differently, drop in the comments. Like the video, subscribe, and we'll keep digging into comedies like this, the ones that should have been a dumb idea and turned into a shared language.